right, so let's do our lesson for August 18th. So at the top of our notebook, we're going to write August 18th. So today we're going to do August 18th. Today we're going to start talking about coordinate points or ordered pairs. So we're going to write coordinate grid or ordered pairs. And when we start talking about coordinate grids or ordered pairs, we're talking about points on a graph that you can show location. You can show where something is or the exact point on a graph. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is something called your x-axis. An x-axis is simply the horizontal line on a graph. So it is a horizontal line. And within quadrant 1, which is where we're going to work, your x-axis is always going to move to the right. So when we start talking about other coordinates, we'll talk about moving in other directions. But when we're talking about x-axis in coordinate 1, we are talking about moving to the right. So the other one is going to be your y-axis. And your y-axis is going to run vertically. So it is going to run it's going to be a vertical line. So your quadrant 1 line is going to run up. So when we're talking about coordinate grids and ordered pairs, we're talking about whether moving along the x and the y axis.
I don't know what you mean by will.
So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move our paper up and we are going to draw a grid. So I happen to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, and I'm going to go over just about that far. Not a big deal. And since I know y goes vertically, I'm going to label this y. And since I know x goes horizontally, I'm going to label this x. So now I'm going to finish building my graph, and I need to label these. So on this first line, I'm going to write a 1, and on this second line, I'm going to write a 2, and on this third line, I'm going to write a 3, and the fourth line, 4, and up here on the top, I'm going to write a 5. So I have gone up 5. Now I'm going to come over from here, and I'm going to write a 1, and then a 2, and then a 3, and then a 4, and a 5. And this one just happened to work out to be 5 by 5. And most of the ones we're going to be working with that we're going to be drawing are within a 10 by 10. So this one just happens to be a 5 by 5. Now this point right here where they meet, this is your origin point. And right here, this is at 0, 0. So we write it 0, 0. Whoops. And so that is our parentheses. So if I want to go move a point, I always move x first. So we always go x first. So let's say, for example, I'm going to put a point right there. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. So I start at 0. You always start at origin. And you're going to go 1, 2, 3. So I go over first. So my first number is going to be 3. Because 3 is along the x-axis, and we do x first, so I'm going to put an x on top of it. And I know I moved over to the right, so I'm going to put a right arrow over it. So that tells me from origin, I'm moving over 3. Now, you put a comma, because that's telling me I'm going to do something else. And I'm going to go up 1, 2 lines. So my second number is going to be a 2 because I went up 1, 2 lines, and I went up in the y direction, and that means I went upwards. So I'm going to put my little y arrow. Now, because this is coordinate grids, I'm going to put parentheses around it so that I know that this is coordinate grids. Not a pattern, it's coordinate grids, and that's why we put the parentheses around it. All right, so that's kind of our notes from August 18th, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the worksheets that we were going to do, and I'm gonna walk you through how we did it. So if you do not have your workbook with you, go ahead and pause the video and pull out your worksheet. We're gonna work on page 307. We're gonna work on page 307. All right. So 307 is just the beginning of coordinate grids. And it starts talking about how each point is named with an X and a Y coordinate, and basically how would you get those? So our first question is point B is blank units to the right. So the very first thing we need to do is go up here on this graph and locate B, and B is right here. So I'm going to come straight down and look at my X number, and it says 1. So what that means is I moved from origin one jump over to be able to go up to this B, and so it lines up perfectly with that 1. So point B is 1 unit to the right of origin, because see, it's 1 step over. And blank units up from origin. So I'm going to start at the origin, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So it is 3 units up. So how would I write that? Remember, X comes first, so I'm going to say a 1, and this is my X number, and I went over to the right. And then I went up 3, so 3 is my Y number, and I'm going to draw my little up arrow because I had to go up 3. So its coordinate grid point, the exact location, is 1, 3. All right, the next one we're going to look at is C. And C is right here on our graph. So you start again at origin, and you want to see where that would line up. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that lines up with C. So I went 4 units from origin to the right. And since I'm at origin, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 units up. So I went 3 units up. So now how would I write that number? You always write X first. So you would write a 4 with an X above it with my arrow going to the right. My second number was a 3 because I went 3 units up. So that is my Y axis. And I'm going to draw my little up arrow. So the next one says write the ordered pair for D. So D happens to be right here. So I'm going to do it exactly the same way. I'm going to start at origin, and I'm going to move 1, 2 to the right because D lines up with 2. So my first number is going to be a 2. Actually, I'm going to move that down. Let's move that right here, 2. And I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So my second number is a 4. Now to finish this off, I know that this is my X because I went over 2. So I'm going to draw my little arrow, and I'm going to go over 2. And 4 was how many I went up, so that is Y, and I'm going to draw my up arrow, which is why I moved my numbers down so I could put all that above it. All right. So number 4 says find the ordered pair 2, 3 on the coordinate plane. So I actually have to do that. So above my 2, I'm going to write an X and draw my little over arrow so that I know which direction to go. And above my 3, I'm going to do a Y and do my little up arrow so I know which way to go. So this is telling me I'm going to go over 2. So 1, 2. And I'm going to go up 3. So 1, 2, 3. And here is where I'm going to find the letter E. So I'm going to draw that on there. All right, I hope that helped.